HASP member Judy Parr earned her BA from Hope College and her MA and PhD degrees from the Ohio State University. Interested in literature and Christianity, she has taught or co-taught 30 HASP courses and currently chairs our curriculum committee. So please join me in giving a very, very warm welcome to our presenter, Judy Parr.
Thank you, Steve. Now I see if one or two are sharing some of these, I really want you to have the pages in front of you that we will be looking at. The words on the page are very important. So if you do not have a page that has words on, they're coming right now. And if you don't have a pencil or a pen, raise your hand so Steve can bring you pencil or a pen, because I'm expecting us to be reading with pen in hand. Pencil or pen in hand. Pencils back there in a box. Just bring the whole box, pass it around. Oh, there we go. A word about those pencils. These are historic pencils. They were from a time when, bless her heart, Sue Bolander had the idea of evaluating courses. We used to present HASP courses, and maybe if you really didn't like it, you'd complain to somebody, or if you really liked it, you'd say some nice things to the presenter. But we didn't have a really good systematic way of evaluating HASP courses. And Sue Bolander said, let's do this. And we had, oh, they're over there in the back, a half sheet of paper that everyone attending a class would fill out with a pencil. That's why we have the pencils handy, so that they could fill them out and leave them. And then the coordinator had to collect all that data. Can you imagine doing it for this course, for example? We've got almost 40 to 50 people. And not only that, but whether they evaluated it on various, scale 1 to 5 on various qualities, but also comments, and transmit them all then to, eventually they'd go to the curriculum chair. Fortunately, now we have a more automated system, and it's much more convenient for you to fill out your evaluations and to have them be collected and saved. Thank you for coming. The last class I taught was a class on the poetry of Barry, Wendell Berry. That was a while back, and I've gotten too involved in other administrative things for HASP for me to put a lot of attention to doing courses. But my heart really is in the courses, and I'm glad I had the opportunity to come today. This is the first of a 2-session course. Next week, we will have Tom Ludwig, vast experience as a professor at Hope College in the Department of Psychology, to talk about the adventures of aging and aging well and aging wisely. But for today, we are going to be doing some reading and some commenting on our reading. I want to start out by talking about a way of reading that's called Lectio Divina. It has a long history derived from monasticism in the Middle Ages. And it was a way of reading scripture that can be applied to any kind of reading, I believe. There were 4 parts to it. First was a preparation that to prepare, you have to be in a calm and tranquil state of mind. You're all sitting down here and you had your coffee. I think you're in a calm and tranquil state of mind, so you're ready for this. The first part then is the reading part, lectio, Lectio. I think we get our word lectionary from that, lectern maybe. These are derived from the Latin word lego, I think. Lectus is the past tense of it, and lectionary has to do with reading. So it's Lectio Divina, divine reading. Okay, the step 1 after getting yourself prepared is to do the reading itself, the lectio, and then after that is a period of meditation where you just sort of quietly think about it and think about what things struck me as I was reading this. And that's why I want you to have your pens and pencils in hand as I'm reading this. As you find things that really jump out at you, indicate those or make a check mark on various places on your text that you have in front of you. After the reading and the meditation part is an oratio, prayer. We're going to skip the prayer. I'm going to be non-sectarian and we're going to skip the prayer. And then after that is contemplatio. That is, you try to open up what you've read and think about how this applies to your life. And so we may, in our discussion, do a good bit of the contemplatio part of this, contemplation. The first poem by E.E. Cummings. We had great discussion in our, I guess it was our curriculum committee meeting about whether or not E.E. Cummings should be capitalized or not. You see that in the poem, you have various forms of I in their lowercase. And I decided that was not a battle I wanted to fight. And so I said, you know, editor, wherever you think it should be, go with it. And so we have this the way it is here. The title of the poem by E.E. Cummings, I thank you, God, for this amazing. I thank you, God, for this amazing day, for the leaping greenly spirits of trees, and a blue true dream of sky, and for everything which is natural, which is infinite, which is yes. I, who have died, am alive again today, and this is the sun's birthday. This is the birthday of life, and of love, and wings, and of the gay, great happening, illimitably earth. How should tasting, touching, hearing, seeing, breathing any, lifted from the no of all nothing, human merely being, doubt, unimaginable, you? Now the ears of my ears awake, and now the eyes of my eyes are opened. Some words from John Timmerman, whose essay we'll read at the very, after we read the next two poems. John Timmerman said that about this poem, he said that in his modern poetry class at Calvin College, he memorized this poem along with many others. And at the end of May, let's see, I'll just read this. I memorized it along with my modern poetry class, and the whole class would go outside on the first sunny morning in May and recite it in front of the Fine Arts Center at the top of our lungs. I was deeply moved by the commentary, etc. Anyway, so this is, I included this poem because it's a poem that's dear to the heart of John Timmerman, whose essay that we'll focus on for the most part in this session. Any comments that you want to make about this that grabbed you? Raise your hand if there's something that you have a question about or a comment. Okay, Steve.
I really loved the joy, the happiness, the optimism in the poem, because we often, myself included now, thinking of aging, it can be a little bit negative. And so this was very reassuring.
And this is a poem that he read with his class, and the class would be young people, but he definitely could identify with the young people and you know, I suppose there are people that could be 100 years old and would read this with the same kind of gusto that we've got here too, depending on your spirits. Yeah, go ahead.
I just spent a week in New Mexico, and that line, the true blue, true dream of sky. I saw a lot of that true blue dream of sky there.
Yes, very blue skies. And we've had some nice blue skies on our own. And this past September, it's been very clear skies for a lot of time. Yes.
I walked part of the way here today, and that just describes today.
Oh, good.
It's just beautiful out there.
So we should go outside after class maybe and shout this out in front of the building. Proclaim the great day that we have. A happy time. Yes. Thank you. Debbie.
It's not really about the poem, though. I love this poem particularly. In fact, I brought you a card of my calligraphy of this poem, but and you can give that to Judy. But I was in a meditation group for a long, long time, and we did a lot of Lectio Divina, and we actually discovered that poetry was the dope for doing Lectio Divina, because I mean, the biblical texts are good too, but there's something about poetry and Lectio that really go together.
Do you mind if I pass this around? Because I read the back of it. And this is watercolor and calligraphy by Deborah Bissonette. And gives her her Wisconsin address. But this is something you put together. You developed this. This is your work of art. Oh, just pass it around. That's wonderful. Now we're going to, okay, one more, Barbara, Sue.
I love the words, but also the colors made it very visual.
Yeah.
I'm learning how to do watercolor painting.
Yeah.
And so this gave me a painting in my mind,
Yes.
not only the beautiful words, but also of sights.
Yeah, the imagery in this is very, very, very helpful. Yes. Yeah, Nadine.
The line, I who have died and am alive again today, tells me he's not always that optimistic.
Okay, I have died and am alive again today. This is a morning poem. It's a waking up poem. You slept and you're waking from your sleep, and it's right in the center here. It's got life and death in it. Wow, death and life. Go ahead.
When I read this, I'm not a particularly fan of E.E. Cummings, but when I read this, I was aware, as I have been since I was a child, that I don't quite understand how you can see how the world fits together, whether you're talking about the colors, the trees, the whatever, and not think there's something greater than us and not believe in God.
Okay, so some people see nature and see God through it. Yes. Okay. Okay, I think we're ready to step back several centuries and out of the United States, where Cummings was an American poet, to William Shakespeare. Sonnet 73. Just leave it. That time of year thou mayest in me behold, when yellow leaves or none, or few, do hang upon those boughs which shake against the cold. Bare ruined choirs, where late the sweet birds sang. In me thou seest the twilight of such day, as after sunset fadeth in the west, which by and by black night doth take away, death's second self, that seals up all in rest. In me thou seest the glowing of such fire, that on the ashes of his youth doth lie at the deathbed, whereon it must expire, consumed with that with which it was nourished by. This thou perceivest, which makes thy love more strong, to love that well which thou must leave ere long. For many of this is something maybe that you remember from having studied it years and years and years ago, but for many of the rest of us, this may be the first time that this has come to your attention. This poem it's a Shakespearean sonnet. There are rhymes in it. Behold and cold, hang and sang in the first stanza. Second stanza, day and away, west and rest. Third stanza, fire, expire, and then lie and by, and then very last couplet, strong and long. And this is a very disciplined and strict form of writing poetry. It's definitely as far as you can get from free verse, which we just read, E.E. Cummings, the lines didn't rhyme and that sort of thing. But there's no doubt that Cummings wrote a poem, and honestly, the sonnet is a poem as well. The first four lines are about what? There are three separate little topics that build up his idea about what time it is for him, or us. First one, what would you, what, in one word, what would you say about the first 4 lines? Anybody? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Say, what was that? Fall. Okay. Fall or autumn. Yes. The second stanza. In one word, what would that be about? Death? It's a time of day. It's sunset. Yeah. It's sunset, the coming on of night. So what we had was a season in the first stanza. We have a period of a certain time of the day in the second stanza. And then in the third one, what is the main subject in that third stanza? Anybody want to volunteer a guess on that? Go ahead. You get the wait, Finlay. Okay.
You're looking at an old person.
You're looking at an old person. Memories? Okay, you're reading the metaphors in it. What images are in here? What do you see when you look at this poem? What object or what thing? Okay, you see a fire. You see the embers of a dying fire. And this also is a way of explaining of Shakespeare's way of talking about a certain time of life that we have. And I would say it's fair to say of everybody in this room that we sort of feel that we are in our autumn years. That's the first stanza. We are in our sunset, dusk part of the day, and then the fire part. The vitality, it's a fire that maybe was brilliant and very destructive maybe at the time, but is now to the point where it's the dying coals or embers. The oxygen that nourished these embers is now causing it to expire in a way. So we get a kind of narrowing down here. First a whole season, then a day, and then we get a fire. And I think Shakespeare is very deliberate about doing this set of images to explain this experience. And I really love the last couplet there, that this thou perceivest. You've seen these things. You've seen what it's like to be. I like especially the image about the bare ruined choirs where late the sweet bird sang, the last line of the first stanza, that the tree branches are like a choir loft, but the birds are gone. They're not there anymore. And so excellent imagery through this whole thing to convey this sense of change. And then the last 2 lines, this thou perceivest, which makes thy love more strong, to love that well, which thou must leave ere long. And someone in the class before this class started pointed out the significance of well, and somebody who's really an expert on Shakespeare would maybe pick up on this. I hadn't picked up on it until the person mentioned it to me, and that is this: to love that well. What is the part of speech of well there, which thou must leave ere long? I first thought, well, this is an adverb. Love how? Love it well. But it could also be a noun, to love that well, which, and that's a noun. It's an adverbial phrase that describes the well, and the well would be considered a feminine image. It's something that receives, and so it could be said that Shakespeare here was directing. This was about, I guess, in heterosexual language, it would be a man's poem directed to thinking about what a woman would be like as a lover. That's reading perhaps more than you would maybe feel comfortable with, but nevertheless, I thought it was interesting. Comment, give her the mic.
Yeah,
Pat.
it was real hard for him to get the mic to me. I don't know. I've read through these last 3 lines several times, and the image I keep getting is almost as though he is speaking to another person, a loved one that this thou perceivest, in other words.
Yes, there's a thou in here. There's a thou. So
Yeah,
there is an
which-
audience.
Which
Yes.
makes thy love more strong, which is
Yes.
very poignant.
Yes.
Because if thou, if the thou is seeing how he is fading and aging, and they only just love him the more, or her the more, to love that which must thou leave ere long.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Any other things that jumped out at you as you read this poem or heard it, Naveen? Okay. Yeah, coming. Mike is coming.
To me, it was just kind of a different way of saying, enjoy what you have right now, because it won't be there forever.
I think that's an apt summary of it. And it applies to all of us, not just those that are perhaps in a situation where they're courting someone, perhaps. Okay. I think we're ready to move on to the next poem, which is After Apple Picking. This is another example of free verse. By Robert Frost, 20th century poet, American. My long two-pointed ladders sticking through a tree toward heaven still. And there's a barrel that I didn't fill beside it. And there may be 2 or 3 apples I didn't pick upon some bough. But I am done with apple picking now. Essence of winter sleep is on the night, the scent of apples. I'm drowsing off. I cannot rub the strangeness from my sight I got from looking through a pane of glass I skimmed this morning from the drinking trough and held against the world of hoary grass. It melted, and I let it fall and break. But I was well upon my way to sleep before it fell, and I could tell what form my dreaming was about to take. Magnified apples appear and disappear, stem end and blossom end, and every fleck of russet showing clear. My instep arch not only keeps the ache, it keeps the pressure of a ladder round. I feel the ladder sway as the boughs bend, and I keep hearing from the cellar bin the rumbling sound of load on load of apples coming in. For I've had too much of apple picking. I'm overtired of the great harvest that I myself desired. There were 10,000 fruit to touch, cherish in hand, lift down, and not let fall. For all that struck the earth, no matter if not bruised or spiked with stubble, went surely to the cider apple heap as of no worth. One can see what will trouble this sleep of mine, whatever sleep it is. Were he not gone, the woodchuck could say whether it's like his long sleep, as I describe its coming on, or just some human sleep. This is about more than just apple picking, isn't it? Any comments, any things that jumped out at you from this? Go to Steve, please.
This was a great poem for me to reread. 63 years ago, when I was a sophomore in college, I got to meet Robert Frost. And I think this is one of the poems that he read that night. He was honored. There was a sculpture that was created about him, and it's in our library there. And so this really was, I was just stunned to be reading this again. And I also do have.
Are you saying that you heard Robert Frost say this poem, or?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
We haven't had in our literary journal, we had his picture. The interesting thing with this literary journal from way back then, there are 2 poems by somebody then called William Collins, who changed his name later to Billy Collins, poet laureate of the U.S. He's read at Hope College. when he came here, I showed him those poems. I said, "You're in the same volume with," he said, "Don't show anyone those poems. Those are really bad ones." But
But he got his start, and Robert
yeah.
Frost probably helped
Yeah.
inspire him.
yeah. Anyway, I've got maybe in New Englander, I collect these things. I pass this around if people want to look at it. It's about 55 paintings of Robert Frost poems. Unfortunately, there's not one of this poem, but you don't have to look at it, but if you want to.
Yeah, let's pass it.
Anyways.
Make sure that Steve gets it back before he walks away from class at the end.
But it was a great day. He had already done his Kennedy speech, and Robert
right.
Kennedy said,
Hey, Kennedy during the inauguration, and it was something about walls, right?
yeah. And
Something that there is that doesn't like a wall.
yeah, and it blew away
Yes.
in the storm. And
Oh, yeah, right.
He had it memorized.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember the image. Yes, yes. Steve.
This strikes me that
Holy Cross College, Worcester, Massachusetts. That
Okay.
was high school, yeah.
Okay.
this strikes me that Robert Frost is writing with, and I'm not even sure this is an adjective, but I'll use it anyway, a R-U-E full tone. And I also sense that in his poem, The Road Not Taken, among others. But as he looks back, there's a certain sense of melancholy, I think, that's present
yes.
in this poem.
Yes. You think well, apple picking that was his job, let's say. And as much as it was a lot of hard work, he took pride in probably picking apples and not letting too many drop. But yet it seems so much. He's so ready. And how many of us have reached retirement and have these moments where you can't wait to be done with the work that you found to be just too much at the time? And so there's a kind of double, it's complex, you know, he has mixed feelings about, I think, the apple picking. He did a good job, but he's ready now to set it aside and to let other people do the apple picking. What about the comment at the end about the woodchuck? But why does he bring this woodchuck in there? Anybody? Debbie, okay, and then
It's about hibernation, and when we sleep, which I think he's referring to death.
Yes.
Personally.
Yes.
He's wondering if it's going to be like what it's like to hibernate. That's my interpretation of it.
Okay. Yeah. Anybody else want to add to that?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. And I actually had a woodchuck. And Debbie lives in my condo where I lived before. We had a woodchuck dig a hole and wanted to make a nest there and spend the winter. And obviously we had to get rid of that. But I thought of it's life and death. It's participating in life, and then the deep sleep that when you're done with work, you're done with life.
Okay, so yeah, in a way, you know, sleep has been compared to death, and a longer sleep would be the kind of hibernation that a woodchuck has. And so he's sort of flirting with the notion of, you know, what happens to the human body after death? Is it something that will be reawakened, perhaps in another form, a different form, a reincarnation? He's just sort of leaving it open at the end. He's just not answering the question, but bringing it up for us. Yeah, go ahead.
So I just think maybe he's just wondering if it's going to be a winter's long and he'll just wake up refreshed.
Right.
I mean, it could be that
like
too.
a
It's
long
not
sleep, a long sleep rather than any, and you'll be the same afterwards, but maybe a tiny bit older. Yes. Any other things questions or puzzlements or things you want to comment about after apple picking, Pat?
Yes, clear up closer to the beginning where it says, I cannot rub the strangeness from my sight I got from looking through a pane of glass. I skimmed this morning from the drinking trough and held against the world of hoary grass. It melted. I let it fall and break. You know, it's kind of as we are aging, our perceptions change. We may not see as clearly as we once did just physically. But also I think he's looking through just a different mental, emotional lens of life, and he can just let it go and let it drop.
So the glass is a kind of lens.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
I saw the glass as a piece of ice.
And so he's calling this piece of ice like a glass.
glass.
He's using it as a kind of metaphor then for something more than just ice.
Yeah, yes, because he's picked it up from the drink cloth, and the hoary grass sounds like good old brown grass in the wintertime. And it melted and I let it fall and break. It's like it doesn't last.
Okay. But I think it's a kind of premonition about what's coming. What's coming. We've got apple picking, and now sometimes in the morning, or especially after a cold night, you're going to find what was a puddle has a thin layer of ice over it. And he's realizing not only that, but even in the perspective of the hoary grass, that is the whitened frosty grass, these are premonitions of the winter that is to come. And so like Shakespeare in a way, he's seeing that his days at this time are compared to the autumn, like that first stanza, and then the ice on here reinforces that notion too about what time of year it is that he's looking at. You know, any other comments or questions? Yeah, Deborah in the back. You know, Steve, you want to get that to Deborah?
I just noticing, because I didn't feel it when you were reading, that it is a rhyming poem,
All the way?
but it is a rhyming poem. Can't figure out the
Oh,
rhyme,
yes,
rhyme
yes.
pattern, but it's like bow and now, night and
Yes.
sight,
Yes.
glass and grass, well, fell, tell. It's a very interesting pattern anyhow.
Yes, it's not all that regular, but there are definitely rhymes that you pointed out. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Not as strict as the sonnet, but nevertheless, a combination of the very free verse that we had in E. Cummings. And it's sort of like this is halfway between the two styles, having to do with how strict form you've, how much you adhere to the strict forms. Yeah.
Well, as I was reading this, I was thinking that whether it's a job where you left some tasks undone, or in this case, apples you didn't pick.
Yes.
Or whether it's your life and there have been paths you didn't take, you chose not to take.
Yes.
I felt that there was more, as someone else said back here, of his poems in general, ruining the path not taken.
Yes. Yes.
Instead of looking at the perfect apples you did pick.
Right. Okay.
And I think that's sad.
Okay. Good observation. Okay, I'd like to move then to the backyard. This is an essay that I found. It was July 9, 2025. I subscribed to this, I guess it's a blog, Reform Journal. And a friend recommended it to me at least a year ago. And I, every morning when I fire up my computer, I read these. They're about one a day that come. They're really a preparation for what I read later in the New York Times. It kind of gives me a balance. These are, often kind of devotional pieces, pieces that affirm spiritual matters, let's say. You see the source at the very top of the page if you're interested in checking it out in the original and maybe seeing more similar kinds of essays. And I'm told by John Timmerman himself that he has published a book of his essays, and this is included in his book, and it's about to come out or will soon come out. At any rate, he's still very much into writing and publishing. Let's see. As I read this, I want you to be thinking about feelings that are expressed and about things that are seen, felt, heard, images, and then be thinking about also things that are more like metaphors in here, or maybe even some allusions, scripture verses that come to your mind as you hear this being read. And so read it with your pencil in hand. And again, afterwards, we'll talk about the things that jumped out at us from this. When I read it, I automatically thought, boy, this is something I want to teach, because there's more here than just somebody's words on a page. There's a lot here. the backyard. Wistful. A good word for the last day of the year. December 31, 2024. I stand in the cold of the three-season porch, watching snow flurries tumble around the backyard like new puppies. After 2 days of rain before the cold spell hit, the lawn was a sea of mud. Deer tracks sink down 2 inches. They visit every morning and evening, checking out dessert in my perennial garden. Right now, 3 turkeys are noshing in the dirt under the bird feeders. Those horny feet can scoop out a load of dirt and fling it aside in reckless abandon. They're mammoth creatures and ugly, the stuff of a cartoonist's nightmare. God must have found some form and comeliness in them. I can't. Not even that jaunty young male with his tail all aflutter, wooing the feathers off a hen that outweighs him by 15 pounds. Actually, at the moment, I'm standing before the wall of glass, wondering whether backyard is 1 word or 2 words. And then I'm forced to sit down. I fall a lot. And I'm not particular about place or circumstances. I have fallen in my garden. I have fallen in the living room when it was full of company. I have broken 8 ribs in falls now, 2 of them at once. When I tried to step into beach sand to feel what it was like, I couldn't feel anything except my ribs cracking as I pitched over. Even as I stand here, pain crawls along the spine with its fractured and collapsing vertebrae, along its surgical scars out to my hips, up to my neck, and a million nerve endings. According to the Veterans Administration, I'm 80% disabled. I wonder how they got it so low. After all, they're the ones who started it all anyway, by drafting me and then flying me to a country where things went boom in the night. And today is New Year's Eve, and I'm about to go to my bed and thank God for the sheer, undiluted happiness I feel. If I kneel, I can't get up. It becomes the disabled person's cry of survival. Never go somewhere you can't get up or out from. You never sit in chairs without arms. Never, ever sit on a sofa. Never kneel. It is good to sit, to watch flights of birds attack the feeders. A big northern flicker lands precariously on the finch feeder, his 2-inch beak expertly snaring the tiny thistle feed. 2 female goldfinches, now in their dusty gray winter coats, feed on the other side of the big bird. For nearly 40 years, we have lived in this house. On every weekday until the heater can't drive the cold away, my wife and I have eaten lunch out here. We watch the bird traffic in the backyard. In the late summer, several of my 35 roses stand over 7 feet high. They stretch above the wire deer fence, and I let them. The deer will do some fine dining. On a day like this, a line from an E. Cummings poem echoes, "I thank you, God, for this most amazing day." A hawk perches on the fence, and all the feeders fall quiet. The bird looks like a sculpture, cold and heartless. It probably knows where the fluffle of rabbits hides out and is biding its time. I have had to bury several half-eaten rabbit corpses left in the backyard. Contrary to the belief that hawks are dainty eaters, the ones around here are slobs. There's just too much food. Squirrels, rabbits, and small birds abound. even a chipmunk or two for a late snack. But I was well on my way to sleep by then. I can sleep at nearly any still moment, anytime, except at night. Strange impulses drive my limbs to flail about, much against my will. My leaden nerves are ornery, awakening at unguarded moments to torment me. I get up, I prowl around the house, fix a snack, read, until exhaustion creeps in and I head back to bed. So now I look through the back window and it is New Year's Day. A morning full of snow and mischief. A flaming red cardinal huddles in the birch tree. He will sit there all morning, occasionally floating down to the snow under the feeder to filch a sunflower seed. One of my favorites, a tufted titmouse, is at the feeder, so beautiful. It is the pinup bird of the backyard. The cardinal has barely finished his chorus when his dusky mate flies to the branch below him. They can't mate in the cold, but they sure keep romance alive. The ruddy male swoops to the snow beneath the feeder, snatches a sunflower seed, flies back to his mate, and feeds it to her. For all the world, it looks like a kiss. A vast quiet passes over the backyard. Creeping feet quiet. Birds wait patiently. The verse in Psalm 46, "Be still and know that I am God," threads into my mind. I also think of the fact that Governor Winthrop had a granddaughter named Wait Still. The brain is devious with altogether too much of a mind of its own. It is good to be still here, to wait on nothing quite so much as the whispers of the Spirit telling me that all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. It's a day full of hope, unwrapped like a gift before my very eyes. They are wide with wonder. The past recedes like fluid into the distant interstices of memory. Pain is annealed by the cardinal's song. He is not shy. He lifts his head, and heaven trembles at the sound. The backyard is made new by 5 inches of snow. Tulips and daffodils and roses are sleeping their long sleep. I haven't seen them prowling around in the night. All is well. I find much of poetry in this. It's more a poem than an essay in my estimation. Very beautifully done. Any things that jumped out at you? Well, I think before that, I want to walk you through the structure of this. It's the wistful. It starts out with a feeling, and wistful has to do with vague yearnings, kind of a longing pensively. Maybe you could say that maybe in some ways what Robert Frost poems express some kind of wistfulness as well. But here it starts out on New Year's Eve. And then when you get to the line that says, actually at the moment, it moves from what he sees in his backyard to some self-reflection. And that goes on for several paragraphs. And when we get to the line that starts, "For 40 years, we have lived in this house," he's going from the backyard to his self-reflection. And now he's beginning to think about the past. He's going to the past. And then about 4 or 5 lines later, on a day like this, he's in the present. And then we get another break after he's talked about the cardinals, the male cardinal and the female cardinal. There's a paragraph or a section that begins, "A vast quiet passes over the backyard. This is early morning on New Year's Day." And that's where the poem or the essay ends. So we're walking through time here. That's the where. And he's on his sun porch. He's looking out at the backyard. That's where it starts, and that's maybe where he is at the end as well. But there's so much more that goes on here than his just looking. There's so much reflection in here as well. Any comments that you want to make about this? Is the where, and the who is obviously it's John Timmerman. He's all by himself here. He makes reference to his wife, and he would eat on the porch or be together on the porch. And so, but he's not directing this to his wife. He's writing mainly to a broader audience that he expects the people who are reading this essay. Go ahead.
This essay hits me as a tuning fork, and all of a sudden I resonate with it. I did not take John Timmerman at Calvin. Now I wish I had. I think he is writing something that younger people would have been didactic and academic and cold and confusing. And I think to people our age, this kind of thing resonates. I get it.
Okay, so this is not just for young people in a classroom. And I agree with you that it is like a tuning fork that resonates. I think in some ways education is wasted on the young. And thank goodness for people our age who now can come back to these things that they may have read in college and bring back so much more experience. And it just, I mean, it comes alive again for us in ways that it never was alive when we were in school. Go ahead.
His love of God is so obvious. Here he tells us about his broken ribs, how many times he's has fallen. His back, his vertebrae he has a broken vertebrae. It sounds like he physically is miserable, but mentally, he says, he goes to bed and he says, thank God for the sheer undiluted happiness I feel.
Yes, that's that E.E. Cummings coming through here. There is a direct quote from the E.E. Cummings. Let's see what line it is here. Let's see. Okay, the bottom. Yeah, on a day like this, a line from E. Cummings' poem echoes, thank you, God, for this most amazing day. Yes, yeah. That you can say that after all the pain that he's obviously been experiencing, and it doesn't maybe go away. It may be likely to get worse before it gets better. Yet he has this joy in experiencing the day in a way that it transcends his physical ailments. Yeah. Any other comments? Yeah, Steve.
Yeah, I love, and this is the second time I've traveled through this poem with you, Judy. So thank you for doing this again. But I just love the way he captures what it feels like to grow old, with his comments about, don't sit in a chair from which you can't get up and things like that. I think that gives me a chuckle. On the other hand, I sense echoes of Psalm 90.
Okay, we're about
throughout this poem.
What's Psalm 90? I've got my Bible.
Lord, you have been our dwelling place throughout all generations, from everlasting to everlasting. You are God. And then later on, the psalmist writes, teach us our days, or what is it? Teach us to number our days so that we might have a heart of wisdom.
Psalm 90. Let me see. I happen to bring my Bible today. King James Version, of course, for poems. It's the more poetic. Yes, Lord, thou hast been our dwelling place in all generations. Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever there hadst formed the earth and the world, even from everlasting to everlasting, thou art God. And just a number of things that go on there about, the wisdom of that. Yes. Oh, while we're on that, there's also a line that I caught early on. Let's see. And it's a most unlikely kind of observation. This is the turkeys. The turkey, yeah. This is on the first page, maybe about the first paragraph, about these are mammoth creatures. They're ugly, the stuff of a cartoonist nightmare. God must have found some form and comeliness in them. Some form and comeliness that jumped out at me. I've heard those words before, And so I went to my concordance where you can look up words sort of like a Google and find out where this is referred to. And sure enough, Isaiah 53 verse 2. For he shall grow up before him as a tender plant and as a root out of a dry ground. He hath no form nor comeliness. And when we shall see him, there is no beauty that we should desire him. He is despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. I mean, this is the great suffering servant song of Isaiah. And here to be, he sees a turkey and he's thinking about this. Now, what kind of man is this? This is metaphysical leap, great association that he has with something that he finds one little similarity, and he builds on that. I think it's part of his artistry. Yeah, go ahead, back here. Yeah, Mr.
I've been a big
Andrew.
bird feeder for 40 years or more, and birds are magical. I mean, they're fascinating, and they have their own little world that can draw a person in. I mean, an observer in the home or in the yard. The bird life is amazing, and it certainly has captured his attention and imagination. And while he's focusing on the birds, the present moment of the birds feeding, he can forget the pain and he can forget the troubles. I think I love bird feeding, and I liked how it fit into this essay.
It takes him out of himself to look at the birds. You know, I have to confess that this was about, how many years ago is it now? 21 in September, I had to put my husband into a facility, Maple Woods. And I got to pick out the room. There were 2 rooms available, and one of them had a bird feeder out the window. And you know which one I picked, the one that had the bird feeder out the window. So that when we couldn't talk about philosophy or politics, Bill and I, we could look at that bird feeder and we could watch the birds going in and going out and thinking about where are they going to? Why are they coming back to this place? And, you know, it's a new world, it's a new vista. And if you go walking by Freedom Village on a certain area there outside the windows, a whole row of bird feeders there. And I think that they realize that for people of our age, especially, it seems like birds have a fascination. But thank you, Andrew, for bringing that up. Debbie?
I just wanted to say, I love the word.
Which word?
Fluffle.
Fluffle?
Fluffle. I thought that was a really creative new word. A fluffle of rabbits hides out and is biding its time at the top of page 4. A fluffle of rabbits. We've all seen a.
Yeah, right. It probably knows where the fluffle of rabbits hides out. Fluffle of rabbits. I think it's a new word. He maybe invented that word, a neologism, a fluffle. Wait for the mic. Wait for the mic. Yeah.
All groups of animals have a word, and right now I was playing trivia. Now I can't remember the answer to the question. It was, what was a group of kittens called? And I can't remember what the answer was now, but it's like flamingos and kittens and all kinds have unique names for the grouping.
Yes.
So I think fluffle of rabbits is probably
as good as you can get. A fluffle of rabbits. I like that early in the very first line too, about watching the snow flurries tumble around the backyard like new puppies. That you know, comparing the wind blowing snow to puppies, you know, getting, you know, fighting each other and playing and in a big bundle. I think that's a great image. Any other great images in here that jumped out at you as being unusual or striking for you? Where there's a comparison between 2 things, maybe something he sees with something he thinks about. Any other things that jumped out? Sue.
The 35 roses over the deer fence. You know, think of 35 rose bushes in a line or a cluster or whatever it is, and then let him grow, I don't know, 8 feet tall or 12 feet tall to go over the top of the fence. That was a real image for me.
Right, and for the deer to eat too. The deer, yeah, what was it? Yeah, there's a part where he talks about, yeah, early on in the first page, deer tracks sink 2 inches. They visit every morning and evening. This was before Old Year's Night or whatever, when it was kind of muddy out there. Checking out dessert in my perennial garden, not just checking out the roses, but dessert. He's thinking about he's thinking like a deer is thinking. This is going to be a great meal. It's going to be sweet. It's going to be tasty. It's dessert. So I love that. What's his view about nature? I mean, there are some pretty brutal things that happening here. There are corpses that he finds in his yard. Any thoughts about, the hawks, for example? The hawks, they're not dainty eaters. They're slobs. There's too much food. Squirrels, rabbits, and birds, even a chipmunk or two for a late snack. Again, thinking from the point of view of the animal, snack. These are each individual kinds of animals, but yet to the hawk, these are snacks. And so he's again kind of projecting himself into an animal, and what are they thinking about? Well, I hate to think about what the squirrel that's just about to be eaten might think about it, but for the hawk, it seems like it's a snack. Any thoughts about that?
I was thinking about the cardinals and the relationship and the caring and the love expressed by the male finding the sunflower seeds and delivering it to the female. I mean, that caring relationship. That was beautifully portrayed there.
Oh, yes. And then also the turkeys. Now he talks about the female turkey being like 15 pounds more than the other one. And how can they fall in love with each other? But he suggests that the turkeys are also thinking about love. Pat?
To me, it seems as though the writer, is standing in the middle of nature with its brutality and with its beauty, and it kind of accepts it all as it is. He's willing to bury the partial rabbits and things like that, and I kind of can relate that to the pain that he's feeling. He's standing in the middle of that, and yet he is still very grateful. So whatever nature brings, he accepts. It's what it sounds like to me.
Okay. There's another.
I'm going to take that a step further, because in the second to the last paragraph, when he quotes Psalm 46, "Be still and know that I am God," he is placing it all in God's hands, understanding that God is bigger and God is more. And we may not understand the ebb and the flow and the rhythm, but that God does. And sometimes we just have to be still and let God.
Okay. Be still. The question, another thing, and this is, so he goes from the creeping quiet feet. It made me think about a line that was probably a different poet, but fog creeps in with cat feet. That's what's the poem on that? Carl Sandburg. Yeah, that's what came to mind with creeping feet quiet. This be still and know that I am God. It threads into my mind. Again, there's a metaphor right there. Threads into my mind. If you've got a verse from scripture threading itself into your mind, then your mind is like a needle. That is, your mind is pretty small and doesn't have a whole lot of ways to. It's narrow. The thread. It has to go in, but your own mind is not very wide for that thread to find a way through. And I think it's a humble way to say that our minds maybe are pretty small compared to the threads that God might be trying to send through our needles.
But he also then jumps to something that seems to be totally unrelated about Governor Winthrop and his granddaughter's name. Like, I can't control what goes on in my mind.
Right. And I can relate to that, especially at night. In the middle of the night, last night I woke up and I remembered, did I write in this note to somebody from Hope College that someone was a refugee, or did I put down refuge instead? And so I had to get up and look, and if it was a mistake, I needed to correct it at 2:30 in the morning. And fortunately, when I looked it up in the dictionary, I had refugee instead of refuge. And so it was correct. And so I could finish sleeping. But that's the kind of thing that happens and maybe it's happening more to, well, once you reach 80, anything can happen.
I just wanted to say, I love that paragraph, the fourth or the second to the last paragraph. And I love all the jumble of things that are in his head, which he's saying are kind of uncontrollable. That Governor Winthrop had a granddaughter named, I love this name, Wait Still. I mean, you have to understand the value of stillness and waiting.
Yes.
The last part of it is the Julian of Norwich quote.
Yeah.
All will be well, all will be well, all manners of things shall be well.
Yes.
I mean, he's got a head full of good stuff.
Yes, he's got a well-stocked mind.
Whoops. As an English teacher, I found some humor in here too, because he questions, should backyard be one word or two words? But he does answer it, because 3 times later he uses backyard as one word.
Right, and the title of it is, of course, a lot of times authors don't really have much control over how a publisher gives a title. But here, backyard in the title is 2 separate words, but yet in the poem, it's in the essay, it's one word, right?
Back in the 60s and 70s, the Hope English Department and the Calvin English Department used to meet every year. And one of the things that people read from their creative writing or scholarship, and John Timmerman was always the biggest hit. But I like, since he's a Calvin person, his last paragraph begins, "It is a day full of hope." He probably didn't intend.
Goodness. Yes, I hadn't noticed that. It takes a Hope College prof to notice that. Okay, we got some more comments. I know you had your hand up, Matt. Give Matt the mic.
Yeah, I want to make a comment about that penultimate stanza that we're talking about. First of all, threads hold things together. So the implication seems to be that for John, scripture is the thing that makes life cohesive.
Okay.
But then the next detail about the granddaughter is an inaccuracy. Wait Still, Winthrop was John Winthrop's grandson, born 1642, died 1717.
Okay.
So it looks to me as if there's the following possibility, that what he's got here is an unintentional enactment of cognitive decline.
Okay.
But then he says, the brain is devious with altogether too much of a mind of its own.
Oh.
So now I'm wondering if maybe
he's playing a joke on it.
He's, messing with us.
Yeah, messing with us, because if your research indicates, and I trust your research, you're the son of Francis Fike, and you've got a PhD in English, and so I trust that what your research turned up is something that we ought to maybe look into. Maybe it was a grandson rather than a granddaughter, and maybe he's playing with us about the brain being devious. But interesting, yeah. Over here? Okay, John.
I think what's interesting is how he has all this description of nature and his appreciation. And then he makes an abrupt change and said, I was drafted and things didn't go right. And that to me is about the only indication of outside influence or what changed his life.
Okay. What are some of the things that changed his life?
Being in the military.
Ah.
Yes. And as a veteran, and there's probably other veterans, that does change
Yes.
people's lives.
Right. And so he's reflecting on his past as well here, rather than the present. There's a richness here of all kinds of things. His past, his present, the outdoors in the backyard, and other things that are, it's the scripture. And Debbie, go ahead. I want you to finish your thought if you're okay. But Deborah brought up a good thing in this one statement. She mentioned Julian of Norwich, and I want to give a little bit more attention to that. The lines are, the Spirit telling me that all shall be well and all manner of things shall be well. This is an allusion, Allusion, a reference to Julian of Norwich, who wrote, she wrote Revelations of Divine Love. And the poet T.S. Eliot has included these lines also in his poem, a part of the 4 quartets. It's called Little Gidding. And the lines from Little Gidding in the 4 quartets are these: and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well, when the tongues of flames are enfolded into the crown knot of fire, and the fire and the rose are one. He takes this fire image that you have maybe in Shakespeare, that 3rd stanza and the sonnet. And the tongues of flames are enfolded into the crown knot of fire, and the fire and the rose are one. And that's, I think, a reference to the very end of Dante's Paradiso, where you get this great rose at the end. And then it's very beautiful. And I put it in my plans for my memorial service. I like to plan ahead. And the closing lines from Dante's Paradiso are very, very, very moving. And he brings the T.S. Eliot, by including this in his Little Gidding, I think opened up a lot of people to think about where did those lines come from. And so we came to this interest in Julian of Norwich, a woman who was a medieval mystic. And she's written, you can read her book sometime. It's Revelations of Divine Love. So anything else that you want to bring up? Are you a different person for having read these things today? Has it changed you in any way? Got 2 hands at once. We'll go for you and then the soup.
It was kind of refreshing because when my thoughts go like the ebb and flow you were talking about, just kind of goes in and out in my backyard and just I found it refreshing.
Okay.
Well, it's sort of, with the waves of the ins and outs right now that we're experiencing as we have little losses of all of a sudden can't cross country ski anymore. There are different things that you used to do really well and all of a sudden you can't do them anymore. And just the gradual change as you age and the difference in your health and stamina and all the other things. So it really gives a picture of adjusting to those new things and adapting and enjoying what you have.
Thank you. Thank you.
It was interesting for me because I don't like being outside very much. I'm happier inside. I don't like the sun. And I lived in California for 47 years, so people find that odd, but there I was. But in any event, so nature is not something that I generally spend any time in or have enjoyment of. And a friend just started sending me pictures of birds. And I thought, what the heck is she looking at birds for? But they are beautiful. So as I was rereading all of this, because I had already read it once before, she sent me pictures of birds. I think one of the things that I find nature's organized in God's way, and people are not. And what I find interesting about people is we're the only animals who are intentionally cruel. And figuring out why that is and how that is has just taken much of my life thinking about. So I've always worked with people, and I might have to give nature another try.
Okay. Some people see nature as red in tooth and claw, some Victorian poet, but others see nature as a kind of beneficence, goodness, provision, providential, that sort of thing. Question, comment back there? Yes.
The thing I like about all these is there are people who are being reflective, and that's an age and stage of life, I think. I mean, some people get it early and they're a little bit unusual. I think most of us are too busy running around chasing life and doing stuff. You don't have time. And I remember when the onset of this happened, a number of years in retirement, I started noticing stuff I never noticed, which my wife had known for years and went, duh. And so anyway, so I'm noticing a lot of things now, and I enjoy remembering and I enjoy looking back. And this would not have been so much true in years heretofore. And a little quip about our daughter. She said, "Dad, you're getting old." I said, "What are you talking about?" "You're talking about the birds." Well, anyway, wondrously to her parents, a hen mallard appeared in her life and set up nesting on her doorstep. And she, for a season, was captivated. And I thought the humor was not lost. She named the hen Walter.
I think the idea of, the age and we are in, and after retirement, before death, is a time for self-reflection. And I think one of the Erickson, I think, had a whole series of stages of life and things that you need to accomplish at certain points. And I think that this is the stage of life that's, I think it's in a way called, it's evaluation, and it's kind of a generative thing as well. You're thinking about, what am I going to leave that people will remember me by? And we're beginning to try to draw together some strands of our life that make sense for ourselves and make sense maybe for other people to realize about us. And so you might, I'm just a suggestion, beginning to think about, what would your memorial service be like? What would you like your obituary to say? And do a little preparation to make your life of your executors a little easier. Maybe it means just cleaning out your house, and that's something I need to be working on later. But anything else before I let you go, before next time? We have Tom Ludwig, and he will give us more of a psychological perspective on the aging process.
Well, what a treat to have the chair of the curriculum committee with us today. Thank you, Judy. Thank you.
You're welcome.